there's the common brands that you can't really go wrong with these days, like Canon, Sony, right? The top kind of brands. And I think Lumix are really big wild cards. We just need some step up from what's available right now, And I think there needs to be something within the next 3 to 6 months at the latest, right? Whether it's an S1H Mark II, S1R Mark II, or an S1 Mark II, I feel like the prime time is this springtime.
Lumix right now is being a little hush-hush with the next flagship camera. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about should you invest into Lumix in 2025 and potentially what are some things that could be on the horizon this year. And joining me in today's conversation and podcast episode is Dustin Armstrong, who's an Lumix creator who creates a ton on this platform talking about Lumix cameras and teaching you how to use and master your own Lumix camera. So without further ado, Dustin, thanks for joining me.
How's it going, Matt? How's it going, everybody?
Dude, last time you were on this episode, I think you made one of the biggest predictions to ever come true with Lumix, which was a far-fetched pitch in my mind, which was the partnership between Lumix and Ari.
It was far-fetched, but, I guess, it happened.
Yeah, and then since then, you had something really exciting launch, which we're going to dive into sort of towards the end of the episode. So if you're interested, stick around to the end. But kind of want to dive into kind of give my audience a little bit of context about when we are filming this, because there could be potentially a lot of cool things announcing after we're filming this. But currently you are about to leave to CES tonight, correct?
That's correct. I leave tonight and I'll be there for 2 days.
Yeah. So with all that said, Panasonic does have a announcement thing happening or some talk show. I don't know if this is going to be even Lumix related whatsoever. So I think pitting that is just worth mentioning, the context of this episode. And it's also worth mentioning Dustin and I both have working relationships with Lumix and we work with them very often. But in all truth and honesty, I feel like we don't know anything at most maybe 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah, most of the time they don't really tell us anything at all until it's really close to something launching. So
so everything in this video is mostly going to be pure speculation, our advice, and some of the realistic thoughts about investing into Lumix kind of in the future. But we're probably going to be mainly focusing on the full frame market in this video. So with all that said, I think one area of starting this topic is going to be the GH7 and what is to come. So I'd love to hear kind of your first impressions of the GH7, the specs in the camera, like how much of a beast that camera is, and how you think that will transition and spark some hope for the future flagship for Lumix.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you brought up the GH7 because I'm actually using it right now for the episode. And I've had a up, down, and up relationship with the GH7. When it first launched, I was extremely excited about it. Mostly because to me, and this comes from my experience using full frame for most of my, career. When it first launched, I was like, man, this would be the perfect camera if it was just full frame. To me, it felt like, man, this is like such a good camera, such a beast, like you mentioned. But then after using it on a couple shoots, I was a little sad and disappointed, mostly because of my bias towards that full frame look, right? However, and this is also a little teaser I can't really talk too much about, but one of my first projects, paid projects in collaboration with Lumix, is about the GH7. And so there will be more info on that soon. There will be a video coming out on my channel and possibly some stuff too coming out on Lumix's channel. But it is about the GH7. And during that shoot, I was able to use it in what I thought would be the environment, the best environment to use it, and with the lenses that I thought would be best. So my bias mostly came from using lenses that were really kind of downplaying, I guess, the image of the GH7. So right now I'm on the 10 to 25 millimeter. Leica lens. And in a video I made, I said probably the only two lenses are the 10 to 25 and the 25 to 50 that I would buy if I was going to kind of invest in Micro Four Thirds. There's great lenses out there, but I can be kind of picky sometimes when it comes to the image, right? And so after using those two lenses on that shoot, that's what changed my mind completely on the GH7. Imagine that. You use good glass in front of your camera, you actually start to enjoy it. But now it's starting to like open my open my thought, or possibly like, what's the word for it? GH7 users, they always talk about speed boosters, right? It's opened up me wanting to experiment with a speed booster, because I do have a set of cine lenses. I actually should have brought them down here or upstairs, but I want to start experimenting with speed boosters, like the PL mount to Micro Four Thirds mount adapter and stuff like that. So I think the GH7 is seriously one of the most perfect cameras, and and the video features are amazing, but it's also a great photography camera as well, because I was using it both for video and photos on that shoot. So
yeah, and that is a nice part about, like, if you did own a Micro Four Thirds system and the L mount system, you can have PL lenses adapt to both systems. Yes, they're different speed boosters and speed and adapters to do so, but you still can get that. And I think what you said about, I think that was kind of the synopsis for most people on YouTube talking about and reviewing or overviewing the GH7 is everyone's like, this is an amazing camera, but it's not full frame.
Exactly.
And I think it was on one shoot, I had the GH7, it was kind of rigged out, but like I only was shooting with the 12 to 35, and then I got my hands on the 10 to 25. And it just, professionally speaking, it felt like a massive difference. Granted, there's still definitely purposes and reasons to shoot with Micro Four Thirds cameras, especially if you're into travel or wildlife. Being able to have 3 different lenses in your pocket is a huge advantage. But I'm curious to kind of now, with that in mind, as we start going into more of the conversation about, the L mount system and everything like that, I definitely do think Micro Four Thirds still has a place. And there'll be more on this channel talking about that in the future. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are some of the advantages investing to L mounts right now? And especially with other camera brands like DJI, Leica, Blackmagic also using the mount as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like there's the common brands that you can't really go wrong with these days, like Canon and Sony, right? The top kind of brands. And I think Lumix and Nikon are just like, even Fujifilm really are really big wild cards, because it seems like a lot more companies now are starting to kind of adopt and make more gear available for L mount, with the Blackmagic Pixis coming in an L mount option. You've got let's see, which one is it? Oh, you've got third-party lenses also starting to come to L mount, which I'm super excited about. Not necessarily for me directly, because I've already got plenty of lenses, but it's more just like it seems like companies and brands are starting to feel like there's a bright future, right, for L mount. And it's giving people that invest in L mount more options, right? And especially lenses like Viltrox. Viltrox's been putting out some really good lenses that I hope comes to L mount soon, because they're looking super nice. And I don't think you can go wrong really investing in L mount these days, because even I've been curious too about, well, maybe I should invest in like a Blackmagic, because I can use all the exact same lenses, just got to buy the body and get Blackmagic RAW internally. And I love Blackmagic RAW. So I just had a shoot this Saturday that I was like, I really want to shoot this in Blackmagic RAW, but I was going to be using like a slider, also my gimbal, and just like switching between all of them. And I was like, I just really don't want to deal with that. Plus I was using the DJI 3D follow focus. I was like, I really don't want to deal with having an extra piece of things with battery and everything on top of my camera. So decided not to. And so, anyways, that's some reasons why I think that L mount has a bright future.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely feel like there is a lot of potential for L mount. And in a recent episode, I was talking to Kofi about this, where it's kind of like you start investing into L mount and it ends up being like a choose your own adventure. Like if you do want to continue forward with Lumix with hopefully soon to be flagship cameras, or if you want to, go over to DJI or Blackmagic, there's a couple different routes that you are able to take versus being stuck into an ecosystem from one camera manufacturer, which is kind of the nice part about L Mount Alliance. Now, kind of pivoting a little bit on, do you think if someone in 2025 right now was thinking, I want to get the S5 2X, or they're potentially thinking about should they wait on the S1H Mark II, which one do you think they should do? And again, of course, this is just pure speculation and take it whatever we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I actually had somebody ask this in my live stream on my YouTube channel yesterday. They were deciding between S9, S5 II, and S5 2X. And, obviously we can't really predict what's going to come. But I think if you're already invested in Lumix, like you have a couple of cameras or just one, just the S9 or the S5 II, you're kind of like on the fence of, should I get another body? You really just can't go wrong getting another body because they're just such a great value. I mean, I saw some deals for the S5 II that was like, it was almost as cheap as the S9. And I don't know if those deals are here anymore, but even just picking up a used body, like it's just such a great value. You just can't go wrong with the S5 II, even if you're on the fence, like, should I, wait for potentially something else, So I would say you can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like the S5 2X, S5 II, even the S9 as well, are all powerhouse cameras in their own niche and market for professional video work. 90% of the time I'm personally using an S5 2X. But I am curious, as someone who was an S1H owner back in the day, and recently too, because you just purchased it again.
I did. It's sitting right here. I just bought it again. Picked it up used for a good deal. Came with a PL to L mount adapter too, and cage, and yeah, it was a great deal.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm curious, when do you personally think the latest Lumix can wait to release the S1H Mark II? And especially since it's already, I think it's past the 6-year mark, or it's about to pass the 6-year mark since the original S1H came out for the Mark I.
Yeah. That's a hard question for me to answer because I think it's more not in particularly towards like the S1H Mark II, but like we just need some step up from what's available right now, And I think there needs to be something within the next 3 to 6 months at the latest, right? Because, a lot of us owners have been waiting a long time in the community for some kind of flagship, right? And I feel like springtime is when it's like spring and fall. It feels like that's when a lot of big announcements really happen. And we didn't really get many big announcements this fall. Felt like the biggest announcement was the firmware update for the S9. But last spring, there was the firmware update for the S5 II and the S5 2X with the autofocus update, frame to IO, whole bunch, the new IBIS settings around NAB time. And then shortly after was the S9. And then right after that, there was the GH7. So I'm like, to me, I feel like whether it's an S1H Mark II, S1R Mark II, or an S1 Mark II, I feel like the prime time is this springtime. And it's like the last kind of like chance of, not like chance, I don't want to like strike fear in people or whatever, because I'm a believer in Lumix and everything, even if something doesn't get released. I think the brand has a bright future and stuff, which we'll get into why I think that in a minute. But Yeah, I feel like though this is the time, at least for the majority of the community, really wants to see something, right? And they should see something.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. I feel like Lumix has really or has the potential chance of owning the creator market, I'll say, from the Instagram Reels, TikTok people to the YouTubers with the S52X, and then more of the pro consumer levels where these are people who are shooting commercials for TVs potentially similar to ourselves or similar to myself running a video production business, but maybe not doing, 50K shoots or something like that, more in that 10K, 20K range of shoots, where I think that is kind of the market Lumix can easily take over with these next few cameras. I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, because going back to that question that somebody had in my live stream when I said, they were like, should I go with an S9, S52, or an S52X? And yeah, it's like the S9 can pretty much do everything the S52 can do. The only limitation is, yeah, really the mechanical shutter, no hot shoe, no viewfinder, and it can overheat really. And and there's no like large HDMI, so it's like it's a great camera for like content creators, and it could get you by in some kind of professional aspects. I even used the S9 on my shoot on Saturday to get some of the rigging shots just because it's such a small camera. But then if you feel like you need something that's like you're going to move into not just your own content creation on like your YouTube channel, or maybe you own a small business or something like that, but you want to do like more client stuff, you probably need something a little bit more reliable. So it's at least something that's not going to overheat. You have got the viewfinder, full size HDMI. You should probably go with like the S52. And then if you're like, well, I'm thinking I'm going to be like a pro, S52X is then the way to go. And those like step ups from each camera, it's not like other brands as well. Not all brands, but some where it's like that jump up to the next camera body is like $1,000. It's only a couple $100 to go from S9, S52, and S52X. So they really could. I feel like with just those three cameras, yeah, they could really own the creator and like intermediate and up to even professional market.
I guess we'll kind of end this part of the conversation sort of around here because we had a whole other episode where we deep dived into talking about what Lumix should pit in the S1H Mark II. And some things, Arilog, for example, or Arilog, you already got right. And we talked about a ton of other features like the VariCam menu system, specs, different things like that. Before we kind of pivot into this next topic of conversation about something you recently launched, is there anything else that you think from that last episode, which I'll put at the end of this video, that Lumix should be adding into their next flagship cameras? Anything new?
Anything new that they should add? Sorry, just to reiterate that question.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing that we definitely need is a full frame 4K 60, or at least close to it, right? 4K slow motion would be a huge benefit, I think, to a lot of individuals, mostly just for the convenience. And honestly, I think it's kind of time Lumix does it. Pretty much, I feel like every brand besides Lumix is doing that now. And so Lumix is ahead in a lot of aspects, right? But obviously there's some aspects that they still need to catch up. It's just like with the autofocus. It used to be that way where Sony, Canon, other brands, were way ahead when it came to autofocus, but they catch up quickly. Once they get those other things added, they catch up quickly. So I think that's a big one. I would love to see some slow motion open gate options as well. Budget anamorphic lenses are starting to become much more popular. There's a lot more options out there, and now even 2 autofocus options out there from Blazar and Sure. I think it makes a lot of sense now to have some slow motion open gate options, and I think that would attract a lot of the pros, to the brand and to the potential of their next camera, right?
they put that feature in, I feel like a lot of people would be coming over, and especially even OpenGate 60 frames a second, like you were mentioning. Apart from anamorphic, just people who are shooting social media content like myself would love a 420 10-bit option like that, even if it had a 10-minute record limit.
Yeah, and people complain about the HDMI lag on the other cameras, right? Well, I'm using the GH7 right now. It's another reason why I'm totally on board with the GH7 too, because I'm seeing my monitor plus myself. There's almost no delay, and so that is a welcome change. And you can also view, what's on this screen plus on top of your external monitor. Whereas usually when you did the info display onto one, it was either one or the other, but now you can see both. Yeah, like the experience is just so much better on the GH7, and I know that we can expect a lot of what's in the GH7 on whatever their next camera is, because the Lumix doesn't usually do stuff like that. The S9 was a little bit of a exception because that was a brand new kind of beginner camera to the market. But if it's an upgrade from a previous camera, they don't seem to hold back, right, those features.
Right. I definitely feel like we can expect basically a GH7 to some extent into the S1H Mark II and future flagship full frame cameras. So kind of slightly pivoting and landing the plane for kind of this episode. Dustin, you officially launched, the Lumix Pro Master Your Camera course. What's the official title of this course? Because that's what I looked up, and that's kind of...
Yeah, so the actual course, this is not copyrighted or anything, right? It's not affiliated with Lumix. This is my own product. I have to throw that out there because Lumix does have Lumix Pro services. And I'm sure that there's, copyright and trademark stuff there. The actual website is called course.learnlumix.com. The course name, the product I'm selling, is just called Lumix Pro because the goal of it is to, master your Lumix camera and become a pro with it. But the actual name of the platform I'm calling, my website and everything, or my learning hub is called Mode Pro. So as in, you're changing from your camera settings, the dial from, to Mode Pro. I haven't finished the logo yet, but yes, I've been working on this project since August, actually. And it's been quite the undertaking, but I wanted to launch it day one of 2025. And yeah, it's essentially a learning hub for everything Lumix. It's a course platform. Right now, the current state of the course, you learn, it's very, it's probably catered more towards beginners right now, but it's catered to just help you get a better understanding of what the settings do on your Lumix camera and what the nuances are of different settings and, that type of stuff. And right now it only teaches you about the video settings. But by the end of this month, I'm committed to launch the next section, which is all the photography settings as well. Lumix is well known for their video settings, but I feel like their photography settings are kind of downplayed. And I know a lot of people, we've already got over 70 people already, 70 students. Some of them are a part of the Lumix community, but there's maybe 10 of you guys that are creators. So we'll say 60. There's over 60 paid students already. And I'm really excited for it to grow. There will be lots more added, not just learning the settings. And I can even give you some teasers as well. But some of the things I'm adding will be job shadows. So you'll be able to come with me on an actual job and see my thought process, my creative process. My plan is to possibly even add YouTube creation, my thought process and my thoughts and opinions. And also eventually there will be a pro section. Now it's time to actually take your camera and become a pro. But the grand vision of it, so this is a little teaser. So Matthew is an affiliate, which is in beta phase right now. But eventually, I would love to hire you guys to actually create 1 or 2 videos. Probably I'll do the editing and I'll film the B-roll and stuff. But the actual talking head of it, I would hire you guys, my affiliates, to make a video, an updated video on one of the settings or something, and then we add that to the course. So then if people are like, I don't really want to buy the course because, it's Dustin, I want to learn from Matthew, well, guess what? They'll be able to learn from you as well, not just me. So that's kind of a little teaser for the updates that could come over the next couple of years. I'm in it for the long run. I'm trying to make it basically the best Lumix learning hub on the internet. And also just launched over 40 LUTs for vlog. One of them I'm burning into the GH7 footage right now. So you can also check those out on the site if you feel like the course isn't for you. So
yeah, and I definitely feel like there's so much potential chance of, there's only a small handful of Lumix creators that have been around for two parts. One, before Lumix got really popular, and then two, before any huge flagships came out. And I feel like there's a small niche group. So it would be cool, yeah, eventually, like you said, if eventually down the line, it's kind of a hub of a bunch of different Lumix creators creating content for a course and settings, and a giant hub to like learn from all the Lumix creators here on YouTube.
To be honest, you can probably learn everything I teach in the course on YouTube and on the internet, but sometimes it can be hard to like find the right information. So not only is it trying to be like the most, like the biggest hub of tutorials and everything, but also just the all-in-one place, most accurate place, right? So that is my ultimate goal with it. So you can just find everything. You can reference it later. It's just a one-time fee, lifetime access. And yeah, there's big things I'm trying to do with it. So,
and if you want to check out our last episode talking about what Lumix should put into the S1H Mark II, check out that episode right there. YouTube recommends you might like this episode right here. Till next one, guys. Peace.